Hello, everyone, and I'm delighted. Today's my guest is very famous concert pianist Paul Lewis. Paul, hello.
Hello, nice to be with you.
Yes, very nice, and thank you very much for talking to me. It's super exciting to talk about music, about piano playing. And if you don't mind, I'll dive straight into this. So I've watched a couple of interviews with you, and I know you don't have musical parents. So how did you discover the piano?
Well, I think when I was 4 years old, one Christmas, somebody bought me a little toy organ that had about an octave and a half, and I just started to pick out tunes. I kind of remember it. I have a vague memory of that. I don't know sort of what led me to that, but I just had this toy and I was just playing with it. And I do remember my mum and dad's surprise. My parents were quite surprised that I was able to do that. And then a few years later, I joined the local library, which had a lot of LPs and cassettes. In those days, I'm sure kids explain what LPs and cassettes are. The predecessor of CDs. So I got to know a lot of music through the library, actually, because it was very, very well stocked, and there was a huge range of music, not only classical but a lot of other things too.
And by which point did you know that you want to be the pianist?
Not sure I do even now, really. I always knew that I loved music. I was always really passionate about music. And I don't know, I felt physically speaking that the piano was my instrument. I did learn the cello when I was a kid and struggled with it physically. Of course, I loved the instrument, and I played in youth orchestras, and it was great to have that experience of, playing within an orchestra and from the cello perspective, getting to know some symphonic repertoire from the bottom up, if you like. So that was all a wonderful experience, but I was terrible at the cello. But the piano just felt physically more like my thing. Just felt more like an extension of me, I suppose, and a natural way to express music. So that's kind of how I got into playing the piano, really. But I never made a decision. I didn't wake up one morning and think, right, today I know I want to.
Okay, interesting. But surely you must have practiced a lot already when you were a teenager, or even younger.
Yeah, well, actually, it started. I got into Cheetham School of Music when I was 14. I went there for the last 4 years of my school life, and it was in that first year that I went to Chet's that I started to practice a lot. So when I was around 14, 15, I started to play pieces that were sort of quite difficult pieces. Pieces like Liszt Mephisto Waltz and Balakirev Islame and these kind of things. And I ended up practicing 6 hours a day at the age of 14, 15. And I think that's what kind of got me up a level technically. But no one told me to do it, and nobody expected me to do it. Mm-hmm. I did. I wanted to, and I was kind of excited at the prospect of, what you could do at the piano if you worked hard. It was quite exciting.
And sorry, a very cheesy question, but what has been the longest you have practiced for?
Oh gosh, I don't know, probably 7 or 8 hours. But I don't do that kind of thing now. I practice 4 or 5 hours a day, 5 hours max, really.
Fantastic. Fantastic. And in terms of repertoire, because you play quite a broad range of repertoire, however, I think you really tend to, I can't say prefer, but we hear a lot of Schubert and Beethoven from you. So is it really close to you, these composers?
Yeah, it's what I've spent, most of the past 30 years really playing, since my late teens. And yes, it is. It's definitely the core of my repertoire, and it's the music that I keep coming back to, really, because I feel it's never done. It's never, the journey's never finished. There's always something more to do with this music. But having said that, in my teens, I played a lot of Russian repertoire. I played a lot of French repertoire as well. And you know what? In this lockdown, I mean, I could feel it creeping up in the last few years, the interest to look at more of that repertoire too. But in the lockdown, I've been exploring a lot more Russian and French repertoire and adding this and thinking, I'm going to put this in my recital repertoire now in a couple of years' time. And actually in September, I have my first Tchaikovsky first piano concerto in 20 years. I'm revisiting that. It's all kind of, revisiting the past, and I'm very excited about it.
Well, I want you to talk about your first actually experiences playing the piano in public. Were you very nervous? Are you nervous now?
Yes and yes. I remember first time I played piano in public, and I was don't remember how old, but it was like a local competition, Liverpool Music Festival competition kind of thing. And I remember looking down at my hands and the keys and seeing this thing going on. And it was the first, of course I wasn't expecting that, because I didn't know what it was like to play in front of an audience. And that's what happened. And I thought, gosh, that's interesting, isn't it? That's, that's how it feels to play in front of an audience. And yes, I do get nervous. And I think what you have to do is that you learn how to channel your nerves. I actually think it's quite necessary to get nervous. I think that those concerts these days where I feel most relaxed, before the concert, and I feel I'm just going to go on and play and it's going to be fine, they're never the best concerts. They're always, something never quite works. I feel that I need a certain amount of nerves to feel that my brain's firing on all cylinders,
That's good. Yeah.
And before the concert, in order to be able to let it go at the time, it focuses the mind. And so in that sense, I think nerves are a good thing and a necessary thing, but as long as one learns how to channel it and use it in a good way, because obviously, too much of it can tip you over the edge, and we don't want that.
You mentioned competitions. What is your attitude towards them?
Well, yeah, yes and no, really. I never liked competitions. I didn't do many competitions when I was a student. I did 4 or 5 competitions, and the last competition I did, I was 21, and I thought after that, I'll just finish with this now. It's not my kind of thing. I've always felt I've struggled to add up what competition and music make, together. I don't think they're very natural partners, really. And how you judge art and how you judge music in particular, of course, that's a longer, difficult question. But in some ways they're necessary, I suppose, and in some ways they're a good thing, because the most valuable thing is that you, as a student or as a young pianist, you learn how to prepare a lot of repertoire. It's you learn discipline through this. It's one way to learn it. So you go to a competition where the repertoire requirements are quite significant, and it's really good. It's good to be able to learn the discipline that's required to prepare all this stuff, and to be able to play it just on demand, at any time. Because when you start out as a pianist in the profession, you need to be able to do that. You have to have repertoire, and if somebody cancels, you get an opportunity to jump in, then you have to be ready, and you just have to go and do it. You can't think about it too much. You just say, okay, I'm going to do it. And that's what competitions, I think, force you to do a little bit. But and of course the other positive thing is that if you're fortunate to get a prize in a competition, then it's good exposure, especially today when everything is streamed and everything is online, and can find you that way. There are also negative competitions. Sure,
but very interesting. You mentioned the sort of idea of being ready to jump in for someone. Have you ever done this? Have you ever jumped in for someone in concerts?
Yeah, I mean, I think we all do it, really. because there's always the chance that somebody will cancel. And I think all of us at whatever age and stage of career where we're at, we all jump in. I think when you're young, though, when you're starting out, if you're in your 20s, there's perhaps a little more reason to take the challenge, if you like. You get a good opportunity with a great orchestra and a great conductor, then you want to take that chance. I think you want to jump in. So it's good to to feel that you have the courage to do that.
And about your career, so I think what is interesting to understand, are you happy the way it has developed, or maybe you are unhappy? And what was the breakthrough, or was it just a steady sort of climbing up route?
I'm very happy, and I'm happy because it really was a bit like a straight line. There was no breakthrough at any point. Like I mentioned, the last competition I did, I was 21, so there was no overnight success or anything like that. And actually, if there had been, I think it would have destroyed me, because I'm not that kind of person. I'm not that kind of pianist or musician. So the way my career has been built was I was lucky enough to get with a really good manager early on when I was in my early 20s, about 24 something. And I'm with the same manager now, sort of 24 years later. It was sort of half my life ago. I hadn't thought about it like that. But yeah, so he gets what I do musically. He understands what kind of musician I am. And he's always had the good sense to put me sort of in the right places, places where it'll work, kind of thing. If you see, not places where I'm pressured to do something that maybe is not my kind of thing, or pretend to be a musician that I'm not really. So that never happened. I've always been fortunate like that. So early on, I remember in the first few years we thought about, because I felt, I was feeling drawn to Schubert, and we thought about doing a Schubert Sonata cycle in 1 year, and this was in sort of 2000, 2001. And Tom, my manager, he said, well, let's think about it. Let's think about it for that year, and let's just suggest it. We'll just put it round. And we were lucky that the Wigmore Hall decided to take it on. And then when the Wigmore Hall agreed to it, then other places thought, oh yeah, we'll join in that too. So things like that. It was never a competition-based thing. It was rather a repertoire and a music-based thing. That's how we sort of pursued the career. That's how it developed, if you like.
Yeah. And who has been the biggest influence on you?
I think there have been lots of influences, but of course I played to Alfred Brendel a lot in the 90s. When I was a student at the Guildhall, he came to give a masterclass. I was a third-year student, and after that he said, let's keep in touch. So throughout the 90s, I used to go to his house and play to him. And yeah, I have to say that was a big influence. It felt like a huge influence at the time. And since then, I guess there's been, the opportunity to reflect on that and to try to put it in place. And yeah, I don't sound like Alfred Brendel. We have very different sound as pianists, but I have to say that he has had quite a significant influence on my musical thinking in some ways, and in terms of color, pianistic color. Sure. That was always interesting for me.
And let's talk a bit about your technique. So have you ever done much of exercises, let's say etudes? Have you specifically worked on improving your technique, or it just came along with you practicing your repertoire that you wanted to play?
Kind of came along, yeah. I mean, I sort of hesitate to say that a little bit. I've never really been a study person. When I was 12, my teacher made me play Hanon exercises. But other than boredom. So yeah, I think it's technique I find, of course, it's a physical thing. It's how we physically play the piano, but fundamentally it starts here. I think technique is as much in the mind as in the muscles. And quite often I find that if there's a technical problem, if I think, okay, this is difficult, how am I going to get around this? Most of the time, the solution is to think of it differently. It's not to practice it for hours and hours, you know. You have to start with the solution up here. It's how can I mentally make this easier rather than just approach it from a purely physical point of view. So I think technique's an interesting one. And I think, you know, I mean, I'm not someone who doesn't practice. Like I said, you know, I practice 4 or 5. You know, I do like to practice as well. But quite a lot of that, technically speaking, is mental practice.
That's very interesting. So can you describe your day of practice, let's say when you're preparing for, of course, a concert?
On the day of a concert?
But let's take 2 days, one without a concert and then one on the concert, the day of the concert.
Concert day, I like to play everything that I'm playing in the concert. So I just like to play the whole program. And I'll play it probably, you know, a little bit under power. Maybe at sort of 75%, if you like, in the morning or the afternoon. And just go everything in a slightly gentle way. But of course, you're also trying to work out the strengths and weaknesses of the piano, whether you can make friends with the instrument and all those things. So that's basically what a concert day looks like. I like to warm up to an hour before the concert. So if the concert starts at 7:30, I'm already practicing at 6:30, and I like to walk on stage really limbered up, like my muscles are, you know, completely warm and loose. I've got friends who actually are the opposite. They like to, you know, not play at all and just enjoy the feeling of going on stage and touching the piano for the first time, you know. But I'm the opposite like that. And on a non-concert day, it depends really. At the moment, today, I've got this lockdown Wigmore whole week. So I'm practicing the Beethoven 27 number 2, the Moonlight, and the Schubert G major. So what I usually do is when I start to practice in the morning, I'll play pieces, I'll work at pieces that I'm less familiar with. You know, a little bit of sight reading, working out, a little bit of fingering here and there, so working out how to do things. So today I was practicing some Sibelius bagatelles, which nobody plays really, Sibelius. So in the afternoon, you know, once I feel warm up, then I'll go on to the pieces that I have to deliver soon. On a non-concert day, I would normally start with pieces that I'm not so familiar with. So new works, you know, things that I'm sight reading, maybe things that I want to look at that I might be interested to play at some point that I haven't played yet. So just things like, you know, playing slowly, working out fingerings, working out sort of how to distribute things and get around certain corners, that sort of thing. And then later on, when I'm more warmed up, when I'm limbered up, then I'll play the pieces that I have to play in concert, or, you know, that have to be more ready. So that's usually for the afternoon.
So how do you practice the pieces that you're preparing for concerts? Do you have a sort of a map where you say, okay, I need to practice this place and I need to go back to this place? Or is it just an overall thing?
Yeah, I'll certainly pay attention to the places that, you know, might cause trouble in a concert. This is single out those places, but otherwise, it depends what stage it's at. Like, for instance, what I'm playing next week, the Moonlight and the Schubert G major, these are pieces that I've played, you know, so the work is different. It's not like I'm working out how to play them, but I'm thinking more in terms of lines and, you know, sort of in shape and color and that kind of thing. And actually, I found one useful way of dealing with that is to record your practice. So sometimes I might, if I want to play a movement or something, I'll record it and then listen back and see, you know, what comes out, because what comes out is not always what you think comes out. So that's always very useful too.
I think actually many also teachers and other pianists, they were saying the same. So because of this online interaction, you are really forced to do a lot of recordings of yourself. And I think it's an interesting result for many to record. So I totally understand.
Yeah. And you know, if you do it just on your phone, then it sounds terrible. In this lockdown, I got myself a little microphone that plugs into the iPhone, you know, which doesn't sound like a professional recording studio, but sounds much better, you know. And then if you put it through nice speakers through a good system, kind of sounds half decent. So you get a good idea of what you're doing, you know.
Let's talk about your recital at the Wigmore Hall. So why this repertoire? Is it something special for you?
Yeah, it's the core of my repertoire, the Beethoven and Schubert, and it's what I would have been playing this year. In fact, what I had been playing up until the middle of March, when everything got shut down. So it's basically I was scheduled to play this at the Wigmore in October, in fact. Exactly this program in a BBC lunchtime concert at the Wigmore, but I'm doing it now. If concerts do happen in October, then I guess we cross that bridge when we come to it and see if I change the something. But you know, I wanted to play something in these circumstances that I wasn't trying out. You know, something that I feel relatively comfortable with, because it's a strange situation. You know, walking out into an empty Wigmore Hall, a kind of hollow hall, but knowing that it's broadcast live and streamed everywhere, you know, and anybody can see it anywhere in the world, really. And that's kind of an odd prospect, really. And not feeling entirely sure how it will feel to do that, but I wanted at least to play music that I felt were pieces that I felt were friends. I you know, I probably need some friends around me that day.
I'm sure. Well, it's gorgeous pieces, and of course, Moonlight Sonata is such a popular piece. Have you been playing this a lot?
Yeah, this year. Started to play at the end of last year with the Beethoven anniversary. My program included both of the Opus 27 sonatas, 1 and 2, the Diabelli variations, and the Opus 77 Fantasy, which is and again, that's another piece that doesn't get played very much, but it's really worthwhile. You know, it's kind of the closest that we get to a Beethoven improvisation. So we're told. Czerny tells us that it's very close to how he would have improvised, and I think it's really valuable for that reason.
Well, obviously, Wigmore Hall is a big stone and big step in order to resume classical music concerts. Has there been any other inquiries of similar events for you, live streaming concerts?
Yeah, similar things. There's actually when I play this concert at the Wigmore next week, it's lunchtime, so we finish at 2:00. But then I'm going to stay there in the afternoon and film the Diabelli variations, and that's for Tanglewood, because I would have been in Tanglewood this year actually playing all 5 Beethoven concertos. So for the anniversary. So in place of that, I'm going to film a Diabelli variations and also a few other things, a few bagatelles, a few things for Harmonia Mundi, because the Beethoven Bagatelle CD is coming out this year. So I'm going to film a few of those to help Harmonia Mundi, you know, do what they need to do when it comes.
Fantastic. And what is your actually attitude towards home streaming?
Oh well, yeah. I'll try and modify my thoughts about that, but I've never done. I've never been tempted really to do that. I mean, it doesn't replace anything. You know, it doesn't replace the real thing. Doesn't replace a concert. I think if you're doing it really professionally, you know, with good sound, good piano conditions, you know, really professionally done, then that's that's worth doing. But it's something else again. You know, it's not a concert. It's kind of, you know, it's something completely different. I don't know what purpose home streaming serves really, because if I'm streaming, say, you know, Moonlight Sonata from my iPhone here at home, well, I recorded it, you know, and it's, you know, why do you want to listen to me play it when it sounds terrible, you know, through an iPhone, when I recorded it, you know, 15 years ago with much better sound, and I've never really you know, found the reason for doing that. I think. Sorry, go on.
No, I just wanted to say that maybe it's because you know, this kind of world of social media that people try to tackle. And my next question was about the social media and your relationship with the social media.
I don't have one really. It's not for me. I think it's a big white noise, really, and I know that's now. Of course, there are positive things about it too, and you know, people find that it's a useful way to keep in touch, and you know, it's a useful way to promote themselves and all of that. But I've just never been able to bring myself to do it. To be quite honest. I know that there is a Facebook page, but it's not a personal Facebook page. You know, I don't administrate that page. But apart from that, I don't do Twitter, and I don't do Instagram or any of those things, because I just, when I look at it, I just think, oh, my heart sinks. You know, that there's basically just like a bunch of people shouting over each other, and I know it's not just that. I know it's kind of more than that, but that's how it feels to me. So I've never felt that I've wanted to join in, you know.
Yes, no. I totally understand, but you know, it's an option, it's a tool, and it is indeed interesting, and sometimes you can indeed keep in touch with people. I mean, not sometimes, most of the times. May I ask you about your prognosis in terms of the classical music in general? What is going to happen according to what you think?
As a result of this lockdown now,
Mm-hmm.
this crisis, I think fundamentally, because as I said, nothing replaces the real thing. You know, that there's no substitute for the experience of live music or theatre or any of the live arts. And I think after this period of isolation and distance, there'll be a real hunger for that again. It won't happen all of a sudden. I think it'll be a slow return, and you know, you'll be dealing with people's own level of risk, personal risk perception. I think there'll be some people, because let's say that a lot of the classical music audience are older people. That's true. You're going to get some of those people who are going to be quite nervous going out and worried. And at the same time, you're going to get some people who think, well, I'm not spending the rest of my life sitting at home waiting, you know, to do anything. I'm going to go out and do things. I want to live my life, and everything in between. So, you know, you're dealing with all that. You're dealing also with the economic impact of it, which has been devastating for the arts. That's going to take a long time to recover. You know, it's not just going to happen straight away. I think also another thing, because I've had cancellations for next season from promoters abroad in different countries, and it's not that they're sure the concert can't happen, but what they don't want is to take the risk of somebody in another country who's not able to get there in the case of another lockdown or travel restrictions.
Yes, of course.
So I think for next season, there's going to be more of people playing in the country where they live. So I'd say next season is going to be more of a home season. And then after, I think 21-22 season is where it'll start to come back. That's my feeling about it. Of course, the truth is nobody knows, but that's how I see it going.
And
personally.
you have been touring a lot. You know, you are a proper international concert pianist. How do you find it in tours?
I enjoy touring. I do enjoy traveling, and you know, I go to such wonderful places and meet wonderful people, and you end up with friends all around the world. You know, you get friends in all these places, and that's one of the worst things personally for me, is that I miss my friends and wonder when I'll see them again in person. But you know, the touring I do enjoy. I don't feel particularly tired. You know, I feel that I have the energy for it, and I enjoy the playing, and I enjoy being in different places. Having said that, I've discovered how much I enjoy being at home too. And so that's that's another plus, you know.
Are you going to take any time off after the recital to enjoy life, or is it going to just stay and you're going to practice every day?
Well, yeah, I've had this time off for the past 2 months and more, 2.5 months. I've had the option to have time off, really, and I guess if we look at the last 2.5 months and see what we chose to do with that time, I think we find an answer there, you know. And I've chosen to carry on practicing, not because I've had a deadline, which, you know, none of us have, but just for the love of it, really, and to explore different things, to explore different kinds of repertoire that, to be honest, I probably wouldn't if I'd, you know, just been playing concerts and just been on to the next thing and doing what I'm doing. And I've loved that. And I've loved just being at home and spending time more with the family. And so it's just, yeah, I don't feel the need for a holiday. Actually, I felt that aside from the concerts that I'm not playing, the last 2.5 months, I've been able to do really what I want to do. And that's what it's been. And it's involved playing the piano and practicing. So I think, you know, that'll probably stay.
Oh, just a couple of final questions. So any future projects or any sort of future things you are thinking about now in terms of repertoire?
Next season, I said there's Tchaikovsky First Concerto. There's also Mussorgsky Pictures and Exhibition. There's some Scriabin Preludes. The last one's Opus 74. There's Mozart Sonata, Mendelssohn Songs Without Words. And then the following season, there's another bag program with Debussy and these Sibelius bagatelles that I mentioned. I thought I have to put those in. Then following that, in 22-23, I'm going to play another complete Schubert sonata cycle, the completed sonatas in the 22-23 season. So that's the next.
Gosh, so you're planning, it's quite a bit of advanced planning actually that's gone into it already.
Yeah. Hope, you know, let's hope by 22-23 this whole in our rear view mirror, you know.
Of course. Well, look, Paul, it's been an absolute pleasure to chat to you. Thank you very much for sharing your thoughts. Good luck with the recital. We all will be watching, and really lovely to talk to you. Thank you very much. Thank you.
Thanks.